Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Melanin Mayhem podcast, hosted by your favorite country girl, Renee Davis. Oh, honey, if this is your first time moving mayhem style, let me tell you, you have stumbled across some of that good today, baby. You see, Melanin Mayhem brings you the story of some of the most heinous, diabolical, and downright audacious serial crimes committed by some melanated baddies that you probably have never even heard of. And if you have heard something about them, maybe you only heard the headlines or a whitewashed version of what had happened was. Either way, baby, I'm gonna bring you that real tea. Ain't none of that political correctness either, baby, because my mission in life is to get real with you and dispel this persistent myth in the community that there are certain types of crimes that Black people don't commit. Honey, that is not true. That damn myth is allowing some really bad apples to spoil it up for the rest of us. Black people have been committing serial shenanigans since we got here and up until today. Everything the envelopians do, we do too. And in true Black excellence style in many cases. Getting away with the shit because ain't nobody looking. So I'm gonna tell you what, you go on ahead and sit yourself down and get comfortable because we about to go in. And to my main things, the milk to my honey, the hot sauce on my chicken, Noir Nation. Ooh, what it do, boo? I'm so glad it's Wednesday. Ooh, my Lord, cleavers. I am tired, y'all. I'm telling you, gallivanting and birthday shenanigans got your favorite country girl tired, boss. But you know what? I truly enjoyed my birthday and dipping it and doing it with my family and my friends, honey. Jamaica was a whole ass vibe, which again is why my ass is so damn tired today because it's Tuesday. I got back last night and I went to work this morning and yeah, your girl is tired, super tired. But you know what? It's all good because guess what? I still ain't through because next week we got the live show. That's right. Crime, Cocktails, and Canvases is going down next weekend on October 18th right here in Hotlanta. So at least I don't have to get on a plane and go nowhere. I guess there is some saving grace for my tired ass. It's featuring live and in your face crime stories from members of the Black True Crime Collective, aka the BTCC. We gonna pull it up, we gonna paint it up, and of course we gonna crime up the place. So don't y'all miss out now. Ticket sales I think have officially closed, but you know what? If you want to be down like Brandy, just hit me up or any member of the BTC and we gonna make something happen. Okay. Ooh, honey, let me tell y'all. I don't know if you know, but I'm sure y'all know by now. Y'all know I love a good vintage tea. And baby, today the country girl is going way back in the Wayback Machine to spill some slavery shenanigans. Now, it might not be fresh, you know what I'm saying? But they say revenge is a dish best served cold. Well, that tea that needs to be spilled absolutely is good when it's cold, but our mayhem maker today, they was not a subscriber to that point of view. Honey. Our mayhem maker was gonna serve that revenge up piping hot, baby. You finna get it right now. Ooh, they made the tea and I'm about to spill all the tea. Now, I don't know if I've shared this with y'all on a previous podcast. A lot of stuff I cut out, in the kitchen. But, I stopped watching slave movies after, let me think, 12 years a slave. Yeah, I was done. I feel like as a people, our history is full of amazing accomplishments that we have achieved, as well as things that we've had to overcome. Slavery, we overcame the fuck out of that. And I feel like more than enough movies and TV shows, anything on this screen has been made about us in that point in time. You know what I'm saying? So can we move on? I'm done. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to me, a slavery movie is like trauma porn. Because when I see it, it makes me want to just go fuck up a 8.5 by 11 on sight. And I ain't trying to let this shit that happened umpteen years ago fuck up my present day existence. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to give nobody that much power. But at the same time, I do enjoy a good resistance. I'm going to get my lick back type of situation that happened during slavery. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we know all about the bad, the shit that kept us down and the couple of characters that made a way out of no way. You know what I'm saying? But the actual factual stories of how our ancestors showed a motherfucker that they wasn't nothing to play with, I mean, they really few and far between. Sure, we got some fictional shit, of course, but I'm talking about the real deal stories, names, dates, phone numbers. Well, not phone numbers, but you know what I'm saying. That shit right there, those stories are few and far between. Knowing the actual names of the slaves that were freed on the Underground Railroad, those names, we don't know those. So when we get the chance to find out some actual stories that were recorded for posterity, man, I live for them. And anytime I come across one, I'ma share it. And today, I got a good one for you. Now, what originally led to this story was me seeing a video on YouTube about a slave that killed the entire family that owned her. Now, the story was a bop. I ain't gonna even lie. But everything on YouTube ain't the truth. So, I'm doing my due diligence. I'm doing research trying to find the names of these people that are listed in this video. And I can't find nothing. No records, no nothing to back up this story. So come to find out, this video that I've seen is a work of fiction, right? A good work of fiction, but a work of fiction nonetheless. That's not what we do over here, honey. We bring facts with receipts. But my good digging ass kept searching and looking up stuff, and I fucked around and stumbled across a treasure trove of actual factual stories of enslaved people that was bout that life. And the rest is history. There will be future episodes on the pod about our ancestors who was with the shits. Now, this tale of mayhem today, it's got it all. It's got a woman scorned, a white woman jealous, crabs in a barrel mentality amongst the slaves, colorism, and at the center of it all, an enslaved woman that had a motherfucking enough. It's a lot to dissect, and we ain't even got to talk about the historical legalities that happened in this tale. Well, like I said, this story has got it all. We gonna talk about it all, and there's even some history that was made in the middle of fucking slavery. So yeah, I've teased you enough. Bring it to the front of the congregation for a proper accounting of how to show a motherfucker you ain't nothing to play with. This week's Melanin Mayhem Maker is a woman who goes by one name, just like some of the greats. I'm talking Beyonce, Riri, and now we got Josephine. All right, so we've already established that Josephine is our main apple scrapple for this story. But before I can get to Josephine, I gotta tell you about the other people involved in this little hill situation. Now, we've established that this is slavery times, right? The slave master, his name is Lafayette Jones. And Lafayette got a plantation in Boulevard County, Mississippi. Is it Boulevard or Bolivar? Because it could be. In the country, it's probably Bolivar. It's not Bolivar. I know that. Then again, who knows? Bolivar County, Mississippi is what we're going to go with. And my Mississippians, if I am saying it wrong, y'all know what to do. Now, that's in the northwest portion of the state, right? Now, Lafayette, he got a wife. She ain't got no first name because, just like slaves were considered property, women were too. And so she is simply known as Mrs. Jones. Now, Lafayette and the Mrs., they have a daughter named Leila Virginia Jones, and she's about 18 months old. And you're going to see in a minute why we know this child's name, okay? And then there's also a son of Lafayette's. I'm assuming this is by a previous marriage because him and his current wife, who he got little baby Leila Virginia, they ain't been together that long, right? So again, that's the immediate family. Now Lafayette, the owner of the slaves, he also has a slave by the name of George. Now George been with old man Lafayette for about 12 years. And for the first 10 of them years, George was a field nigga. You know what I'm saying? From sun up to sundown, he was digging and plowing and chopping. Whatever needed to be dug, plowed, and chopped. And somewhere around year 9.5, 10-ish, somewhere around in there, George couldn't dig, plow, and chop no more. He was what they was calling an invalid. And some accounts say that George had arthritis real bad, so he couldn't move around like he used to. So old man Lafayette gave George kind of a promotion, if you will. Instead of working in the fields, he was brought closer to the house. Now, by no means was George a house nigga with the hard ER, you know what I'm saying? He was just moved closer to the house. You know, he was house nigga adjacent. Yeah, they had him doing odd jobs outside of the house. You know, think like handyman. And he could come in the house for a second, you know, if something needed to be fixed or whatever, but then he was to go the fuck right on back out the door and finish handling yard shit, okay? So in addition to George, old man Lafayette also had a female slave by the name of Elsie. Elsie was the cook. Now, she had been the cook forever and a day. Like, Elsie in charge of all things kitchen since 1838. So damn near 20 years, she been running that shit. That was her kitchen. And y'all know how we are about our shit. You know what I'm saying? Elsie walk around that motherfucker, this my shit, don't touch my shit, I cook what I want. I'm the head kitchen bitch in charge, right? And then there was Leith. Now, Elsie was Leith's mama. And strangely enough, if you can believe it, Leith bore a strong resemblance to old man Lafayette. She had a little cream in her coffee, if you know what I'm saying. Now Leith was a house negress. You know, she kept the place clean or whatever, along with her mama in the house. Now, Leith also had a child with cream in her coffee, too, that just so happened to look just like little Leela Virginia Jones. And that baby was also around the same age as old man Lafayette's daughter with Mrs. Jones. Just messy, trifling. Anyway, so old man laid a pipe to everybody is Leith's daddy and Leith's baby's daddy. So what, that's his daughter and his granddaughter? Just nasty, trifling. Ugh. Anyway, moving on. Now, Elsie, Leith, and Leith's baby. Let's just say that they had a bit of an easier time on the Jones plantation. You know what I'm saying? They could do a few things on the plantation that others couldn't. You know, they ate well, and their little cabin had a few more accoutrements than the other slave cabins. And you know, I'm just saying, if you got to be a concubine, then you should be perked up or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Literally and figuratively. Now, there is one other enslaved woman that belonged to Lafayette Jones that I want to talk about. Her name was Eliza. Now, Eliza, she about 20 years old, you know what I'm saying? And Eliza got goals. Yeah, Eliza want to be what Leith is. She wants to be upgraded, if you will, because right now she in the field and she don't want to be in the field. She want to be in the house. And she is willing to do whatever need to be done to increase her standing on the plantation. All right, so now that you know who everybody is at play at the Jones plantation, I can tell you that, you know, they worked in conjunction. They had been there for a varying amount of years. A lot of them was family, you know what I'm saying? So the roles were set and everybody played their part, and shit was, dare I say, when we're talking about slavery, it was normal for plantation life. And that is normal until old man Lafayette Jones took a trip to Louisiana and made a purchase that shook everything up. Now, the year is 1847 when we come across Josephine. Now, Josephine is a mulatto enslaved woman from New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, if you don't know, mulatto is an old school descriptive way to say a person is of mixed race, right? We call them biracials now, but of course, you know, then like now, the one drop rule being a whole thing, a girl was of the melanated magical peoples, right? And at some point in time, she was sold, given, bartered, traded, whatever, from New Orleans to a plantation in Kentucky. And it was said that she was a nurse on this particular plantation. Now, I ain't talking no RN, no LPN or nothing like that. More like a CNA mammy type of situation. Now, the family, they loved Josephine and they treated her really good. Like, they really treated her nicely. And as a member-ish of the family, they gave her gifts, like real gifts. I'm talking jewelry and shit. Now, I ain't never heard no stories or seen it depicted on the screen of the whites being kind like that during slavery. But apparently shit like this happened because I got documentation of it, right? Now understand though, just because these nice landlords liked her, she was still somebody's property. I mean, yeah, she was light, bright, and damn near white, but she was still a slave that could and would be sold for silver and gold. But it appears that Josephine might have had a smidgen of favor on her life. You know, I think that Josephine was one of the first to use what you got to get what you want. Josephine was charismatic. She looked good. She know how to talk to folks and get them to do what they want. And somehow, some way, I'm thinking maybe after the children grew up, because there's about a 10-year swing long from when Josephine started with this family till she ends up back in New Orleans. And so Josephine is thinking that she's about to be able to continue to live out her days in New Orleans because she that bitch. And she's going to be happily ever after. You definitely don't see that depicted in a slave movie. And guess what? She thought she was. But then old Josephine got her real nigga wake-up call. Because Josephine was light. She was a house negress, right? She knew how to care for the children and keep them healthy. And she could work that stove like nobody's business. And that made her valuable. We know them 8.5 by 11s. They love a good piece of gold more than they love anything. You know what I'm saying? And while Josephine thought she had sway with her owners, she found out that she didn't when she was sold in 1857. February 1857. And this is what tripped me out because in my mind, slaves were sold. And we know that, right? But in my mind, they just, okay, you go back to the house, get your shit, and you just pack up and go. And there's no fuss, there's no muss. But I was wrong because I'm sure that probably was the way it was 90% of the time, or maybe even more than that. But they say and they wrote that Josephine throwed a whole ass hissy fit by having to leave New Orleans. It is written that she screamed and she cried and she cussed and she fussed and she pouted and she made sure it was no secret that sister girl was not pleased with what was fucking going on. Okay, so that's shocking, but let's move on. So like I said, it's February 1857 when all this goes down, and to my best estimate, Josephine was sold somewhere around the 7th of February. Remember that. It's February 7th, 1857. So old man Lafayette and Josephine, they make this journey back to the Jones plantation in Bolivar County, Mississippi. And Josephine complaining the whole way. And when she get there, it don't seem like Josephine was the only person not pleased that she was there. All them other female slaves that I told you about, oh, they was pissed too. See, what had happened was, soon as Josephine got on the scene, some realignments took place. Elsie and Leith's baby got booted from the house. Ain't that some shit? How the fuck? Yes. And so Lafayette Jones, the master, he told Elsie her services was no longer needed in the kitchen. And Josephine was going to be the head bitch in charge of the kitchen from here on out. And so Elsie and her daughter and her granddaughter were demoted, I guess we would call it, from being house niggas to being field niggas. You know that shit went down like a fart in church. You been fucking me for the last 20 years. I got a baby by you and my baby got a baby by you. And you mean to tell me? What? Man, I mean, and shit, I can dig it. I can dig it. You been used to the creature comforts in life, and now they out for a new 2.0 version? I ain't gonna say colorism was at play, but Elsie was a brown-skinned woman, and Leith had a little cafe au lait going on, and her daughter was full-on light, and that should have been able to carry them through, they thought, but it didn't. That was old news, and Josephine was the latest and greatest, baby. Can y'all see the resentment loading? You know what's finna happen, right? Okay, but wait. It gets so much better. Okay, now, Mrs. Jones. Now, she's only been the missus of this here plantation for about 2 years. Just long enough to try to settle into a bit of a routine. And so, she wasn't expecting her husband to come home with a pretty little light-skinned wench to have in the house and to kick Leith and Elsie them out. You know what I'm saying? And so she see how Leith looked like her husband and how Leith's baby damn near looked like her daughter's twin. So Mrs. Jones is definitely not happy about Josephine popping up on the scene. So okay, Josephine gets settled in right that day. And the next thing you know, about a week after being on the Jones plantation, she said somebody stole her jewelry. And she's pissed, right? Because they already treating her greasy because she the new girl. And now they done stole her shit. Josephine ain't happy. Like, she is on edge. And we are now about to go into week 2 with Josephine ready to cut a bitch. Y'all know them folk from New Orleans will get you. Don't let her start shaking chicken balls and shit. Let me stop. Now check this though. By the end of week 1, old man Lafayette decided it was time to welcome Josephine properly to the plantation, and he started rolling up in her room at night. And of course, there's nothing that Josephine can do about this except take it. But she hot though. She is hot. Like hot enough to fry fish hot. But you know, she trying to hold it all together to just make it through, put one foot in front of the other, because I don't care. During slavery, them goddamn crackers did what the fuck they wanted to black women's body. And they had to just endure and deal with it, right? But here's the thing. We starting week 2, right? And now her fellow enslaved people fucking with her. She got old Lafayette Jones coming in the room fucking with her. And now here come Miss Jones. She starting to fuck with Josephine because Mrs. Jones has noticed that her husband is playing hide the sausage with the new nigga and she ain't pleased. So since she can't go ham on her husband, she take her frustrations out on Josephine. Oh, she got Josephine cooking all kind of shit. And then she complaining about it all. Throwing the shit away. This ain't good. That ain't good. What the fuck is this? This shit tastes horrible. She talking about Josephine can't cook shit right. She is talking cash shit to Josephine. And for the first couple of days, Josephine don't say shit. She just take it and just keep going. But oh, baby. On February 27th, 1857, 2 weeks after pulling up on the scene, Josephine done had a motherfucking enough. Oh, baby. It all started that morning. Josephine cooked breakfast, and Miss Jones said, "This shit nasty." And thought that shit against the wall like goddamn Suge did when Mr. made that breakfast. What, you trying to kill me? What is this shit? I'm sorry. Okay. She said this shit was nasty. She let Josephine know that this is some trash, right? But this time, instead of just standing there quietly, Josephine basically smacked her lips and rolled her eyes directly in the face of Miss Jones. It was one of them, bitch, if you don't get out my face type of things. You know how our faces do. That shit has been the same over the eons and generations, baby. Bitch, you on one. That shit's universal. Well, Mrs. Jones was not gonna have none of that. Oh, no, you not gonna disrespect me in my motherfucking face. Somebody done told you wrong, bitch. And so then she go and tell her husband, Mr. Lafayette Jones. Oh, she ran go tell him that Josephine has sassed her and needs to be punished. Well, Lafayette Jones, in turn, goes in and snatches Josephine up and tear that ass up. So now Josephine is embarrassed because one, she ain't used to being treated like a common slave. You know what I'm saying? And this is the motherfucker that's raping her at night. And now he got the nerve to put his hands on her in front of everybody because that bitch wife of his is fucking with me. Man, let me tell you something. Josephine, she was beyond the highest point of festivity at this point. She ready to throw hands. Like, she ready. She's really ready. But guess what? Mrs. Jones, she don't give a fuck. Soon as her husband got through whipping Josephine go back in the kitchen. She gonna throw some salt, right? She just fucking with Josephine, talking cash shit. You know who run this shit now, don't you? Mm-hmm. Bet you wanna do that shit. And I'm like, I bet you know who boss now, right? Josephine just stay in the kitchen, right? So Miss Jones, she can go out through the house or whatever, doing whatever she do. But she still ain't through fucking with Josephine. So she all in another room and she like, Josephine! No answer. Josephine! No answer. Now she practically screaming now, Josephine! Josephine is ignoring the fuck out this woman. So Miss Jones, not to be ignored, she goes to the kitchen. Bitch, you ain't hear me calling you? Josephine turned and looked that woman dead in her face, looked her up and down like she was short, and then she turned around like dust, bitch. And then, to just make sure you understand what I'm saying, Josephine knocks a chair over like, bitch, what? I will fuck you up. Ain't nothing but space and opportunity between us, and I just shorten the space. And then she just turns around and proceeds to ignore the fuck out of Mrs. Jones, the mistress of the house. Oh, baby. It's up. Miss Jones was a punk bitch. Now, please believe that. She ain't finna go over here and see exactly what Josephine on because she understands the Sophia-ness of it all. No, Josephine don't want to be your maid. I said, hell no. Stop, Renee, stop. Okay, so Mrs. Jones, instead of running up on Josephine, you know what I'm saying, because she wasn't feeling froggy, period. She instead goes outside and gets the overseer. Now, you know, that's the motherfucker over all the slaves. And she tell the overseer that he need to whoop this whole ass. And that's exactly what the fuck he did. So now, Josephine done got 2 ass whippings in the span of an hour and some change. Oh, baby. She 38 hot at this point. She is a woman scorned. She is a woman beat down. She is boiling. And she is plotting on how she gonna get her lick back. Because y'all done fuck with the wrong one. Baby, Josephine goes about the rest of the day getting the dinner ready for the Jones family. She in that kitchen cooking up a storm, baby, putting together a master plan to show them they don't fuck with the wrong one. It's dinner at the Joneses. We got Lafayette, we got Miss Jones, we got Lafayette's son, the one that came from a previous marriage. We got baby Leela, and there is a friend of the family that's there too, and they are all sitting down waiting to be served dinner. They eating, they talking, they just kicking it, you know what I'm saying? The night is progressing, and they just fellowshipping or whatever, just enjoying the day. It's just a regular day at the Jones plantation. Well, then one of the slaves brings out some tea. Now, this is teapot tea. Now, anytime I know sweet tea, this is a teapot and some tea bags or whatever, and they finna post some tea up, right? Normally, they don't have tea at dinner like this, but you know, hey, it's here. Let's have a drink, you know. So Mrs. Jones pours a cup of tea for her husband. She pours a cup of tea for herself. And she pours a cup of tea for her little baby daughter, right? And so there's a nurse there that's helping out with the little girl. The nurse begins to give the tea to the baby. The baby's drinking. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, they get a few sips in. Leela, the baby, she drank damn near the whole little cup. What's in her cup? Ooh, baby. A few minutes later, Lafayette, his wife, and the baby, they start gagging and throwing up their guts. I'm talking about it's coming out both ends. They throwing up and shitting everywhere. Stomach pains, the whole 9 yards. They are fucked up. Now, the son and the friend of the family that didn't have no tea, they fine. They sit here looking like, what the fuck is going on? They soon realize that they've been poisoned. Everybody who drank the tea fucked up. You know what I'm saying? So Lafayette is like, get the teapot, lock it up so nobody can't wash it. And then he sent out for the doctor to come save their ass because they still throwing up, they shitting. And Dr. Mason comes, right? He checks everybody out and he's like, yep, look to me like y'all been poisoned. By the smell of it, it looks like arsenic poisoning. And baby Leela, oh, she got the worst of it. I mean, she is the smallest, and she drank the most of the poison. She ended up dying that same night. But Lafayette and Mrs. Jones, they just puke and shit theyself almost to death. But they do make it out on the other side. So they searching around on the grounds, in the house, and they find a glass vial in the fireplace that somebody tried to destroy. Now, this vial got some type of powdery substance in it, and everybody started to point the finger at the cook. And who was the cook? Josephine is the cook. She's the one who prepared all this shit. And so they instantly go lock her ass down. Now, this is where it get good. Now, right before all this happened, remember, Elsie and Leith, they've been sent to the fields, so they not happy. They immediately start snitching on Josephine. But somebody else also ain't happy with old man Lafayette either. Your boy George, Chicken George, him. See, the day before the poisoning happened, Lafayette told George that he didn't give a fuck about his arthritis. He was going back to being a field nigga, and so he had ordered him to go plant potatoes the very next day. The very next day being the day that they were actually poisoned. But that particular day, that morning, George called in sick. Now, who the fuck knew that a slave could call in? But y'all, that's exactly what the fuck happened. They say George took ill, told them he couldn't go out there in the field, and so they didn't make him go out there in the field. Now, of course, he didn't have the luxury of just laying around in the bed or nothing like that. He just kind of hung around in the yard doing the shit that he normally do, right? Well, this is where Eliza come in. Little Miss I Wanna Be Down. She tell old man Lafayette that she seen George talking to Josephine and that George gave her something in a vial right before the poisoning happened. She said that she heard George tell Josephine that it was rat poison. She said that she also overheard him talking shit about old man Lafayette after he said that he wanted him to go back to the fields, right? Then here come Elsie and Leith. They ready to go back to their positions in the house because that field shit ain't really their cup of tea. No pun intended. So everybody is pointing the finger at Josephine and George. Well, George said he don't know what the fuck they talking about because it was actually a slave named Charles that he overheard talking to Josephine, talking about he was gonna fix up some papers, and Josephine was talking about how they could get on a boat and go up the river. He said when the shit went down at the house, he saw Charles running away like the devil was behind him. Though he said that he did give Josephine a glass vial, but he said he didn't know what was in it because George can't read. Now, at this point, the overseer locks Josephine and George down for the crime because all roads is leading to y'all asses. Now, mind you, there's no jail on the plantation or nothing like that. They literally just tied their asses up and left them to wait to see what happens next. So the following morning, the rest of the plantation, the enslaved people are gathered around in different spots talking about what had happened the night before. Because, this is big news. A killation of a baby, or almost killation of the mister and the missus. Ooh, child. The gossiping, baby, they was talking shit about Josephine in her face, right? Because remember, they ain't care about her ass, no way. And she locked up right there in the house, so they just go over there and just talk shit. Bitch, I can't believe you did this shit. Oh my God. You're a terrible woman. How you gonna try to kill master? Hey, you killed the baby. You going to hell, bitch. They was on her ass. And the street committee say Josephine didn't give two shits about how they felt. They say Josephine said some shit like, for God's sake, y'all shut the fuck up. Y'all making more fuss about the shit than the white folks do. I don't give a fuck. Look how much shit they do to us. I ain't the first one to do this shit. I ain't gonna be the last either. Absolutely, Josephine. I'm just saying. Y'all niggas ought to be happy. So the next thing you know, the sheriff comes to pick up Josephine and George, and they are jointly indicted for murder of poisoning Leila Virginia Jones. They had 2 counts in the indictment now. On the first count of murder, they had Josephine and George charged as principals, meaning both of y'all are the main motherfuckers who did this shit. The second count on the indictment, still for murder, it had Josephine as the primary, and George was an accessory before the fact. Now, that's going to be real important in just a minute, right? Now, understand, in 1857, black people could be charged with a crime and have their day in court, but by law, they really couldn't speak to defend themselves in court. They could have representation that spoke for them, but they might as well have been deaf and mute as far as the law of the land felt, right? And at some point, old man Lafayette, he had a little bit of a change of heart. And he put up some money for George to get a lawyer, right? Because he really didn't believe that George tried to kill him. He thought this shit was all on Josephine. And so George's lawyer petitioned the court to have the trial severed so that, him and Josephine wouldn't be tried together. And each of them would have their own separate trial. Now, that motion was granted. So now George went to trial first, and then Josephine will go to trial second, right? But they still both had the same 2 charges. One saying that George and Joe was in the shit together equally, and the other one saying that Joe was mastermind and George was just her patsy. Okay? So this is where the legal gymnastics would start. Because you see, in layman's terms, you can't charge them both with being a mastermind and the accessory. It's one or the other. Either George was the mastermind and Joe was the accessory, or Joe was the mastermind and George was the accessory, or they both were the mastermind and there were no accessories, right? But you can't have both of those indictments on the same docket or the same case, right? And so George's lawyer was like, look, pick one so I know how to defend my client, because he can't be both. Because remember, George goes to trial first. And that thought process that George's lawyer was talking about, that shit worked for the caucasticals of the land, but not for the niggas. The district attorney was like, fuck that. I ain't doing shit. We're going to proceed the way I wrote that shit up, and we just going to let the jury figure the shit out. And the judge sided with the district attorney. Like, that's a shocker, right? Yeah. So George's case goes to trial, and George is found guilty. Now, when Josephine went to trial in November of 1857, Lafayette Jones gets on the stand and he testified about how he owned George and how Josephine was acting a fool after he bought her and wasn't really fitting into the plantation dynamics and shit. And he said that George was a good and obedient and humane servant. That's a direct quote. And he said that Josephine cooked all the food and made the tea that made them sick and killed his daughter. Mrs. Jones got on the stand, and she testified that Josephine was a bitch that tried to kill her and her family and killed her infant daughter. She said that in the days leading up to the poisoning, that Josephine was acting all stank dank. She had to have that ass tapped a couple of times that particular day, so that's probably why she did what she did. I can believe that, Mrs. Jones. I can believe that. So then the overseer, he got on the stand, and he pretty much said the same shit. He just talked about George was a good dude. He was supposed to go back to the fields, and he wasn't really happy about it. But, he ain't really grumbled no more so than any other slave that would have heard some shit that they didn't want to hear like that, right? The doctor got on the stand and testified about what he saw when he pulled up on the Jones plantation that night, what he thought the poison was, finding a little glass jar. He even said that Josephine confessed to him, right? So then the state called Josephine to the stand. And that's crazy because, again, slaves can't testify. But here she is. Now, at George's trial, he objected, right? His attorney objected to all of that. And the judge was like, sit your ass down and shut the fuck up. He basically overruled his ass. When Josephine got on the stand, She says that about a week before the poisoning took place, she had took George his dinner. And when she got there, George was talking about how he was being sent back to the fields and he was going to play sick because he wasn't finna go back to them motherfucking fields. And then he said that old man Lafayette was on his ass and it was all because the overseer was hating on him, right? And she said that George told her, but you know what, that's all right, because I got something for both their asses. Lafayette laughing now, but we going to see if he going to be laughing in a few days. She said that George showed her a vial. The vial had some white powder in it, right? And she said it said arsenic on it. Because Josephine can read. George couldn't read, but Josephine can read, right? So she says that's what happened. She said that there was a chick named Eliza in there when George was saying all this shit. Now, Josephine say that on the day the poisoning happened, George came in the kitchen right before dinner was served. She said the dishes were all out on the table, waiting to be set out. She said that George asked her for a spoon so he could take some medicine. And she was like, if you don't go get it yourself, honey, you know where they at. And so she says he walked over by the stove where the tea kettle was, and he got a spoon and he did something, and then he told her, don't let nobody mess with this. And she said that she had her back to George the entire time and really wasn't paying him no attention, so she don't know what he could have done. And then she said, and I didn't even serve the tea. It was another girl named Maria that poured the tea. Who knows? Any of them could have did this. Josephine said, look, I ain't made no tea. I don't know nothing about no tea, right? Josephine said that after all the shit went down and the overseer came and snatched her ass up and tied her up, she said a little while later, George popped up and was like, hey, did you move that from the kitchen? And she was like, move what? I don't know what you're talking about. Then she asked George, she was like, hey, did you put something in the food? And he said, not enough to hurt. And then he walks off. She said he came back a little while later and told her that he had thrown the vial that he had given her in the fire and for her not to say nothing about it. And Josephine said, she don't know nothing. I don't know nothing else. I ain't do nothing. All I do is cook the food. They done brought me. They treat me wrong. I ain't did nothing. I'm a victim here, right? She said the slaves on the plantation, they don't like her. Everybody always fucking with her and her stuff. And they all probably got together and cooked this shit up to frame her for this baby's murder. Wow. Okay, story. I like it. I'm saying I like it, girl. So they had a few more enslaved people get on the stand. Again, almost everybody is pointing the finger at Josephine. Everybody seen her do something strange in the kitchen. Everybody seen her putting something in the tea. But nobody thought anything about it because she the cook, right? Now, again, I need to point out, I'm talking about like 9 slaves testified, even though enslaved people could not present evidence in a court of law. So this is historic in 1857, right? In Mississippi, of all places. Now, 5 of these slaves that got up there and testified, they testified against Josephine. She did it. I saw her. The bitch did it. The other 4, they contradicted the testimony of the ones who said that Josephine did it. I ain't see her do it. I seen George. I seen this person. I seen that person. All right. So this here, what we have is a good old case of he said, she said. Now the chemist got on the stand. They tested the teapot and they did indeed find arsenic in the teapot. So somebody poisoned the Jones family, right? And here, check this out. The family that Josephine used to work for in Kentucky, the man, he came to testify on Josephine's behalf, and he made sure that the court understood that Josephine was a kind and trustworthy woman. Woo, child, what a mess. We got white folks in the mess now. Everybody just pointing fingers. Who the fuck killed Leela? And who tried to kill Lafayette and Mrs. Jones? I mean, was it George because he didn't want to be a field nigga no more? Was it Elsie and Leith because they was ready to come out the fields and back in the house? Was it Josephine because she didn't want to be whooped and fucked no more? You know what? It don't even matter because 2 enslaved people were on trial in Mississippi for killing a white baby and almost killing a white man and his wife, right? We know how this ends, right? Wrong. For George, yes, the verdict was guilty on all counts. Nigga, that shit. But for Josephine, the jury deliberated on November 6th, 1857. Now, this jury is all white men. Understand, it's 1857, right? Y'all, why they couldn't come to a unanimous verdict? I know, right? That's a shocker. The judge, they had no choice but to declare a mistrial because they could not come to a verdict. Woo, honey, the DA was hot. But you know what? The DA went right on back, and the DA is going to try Josephine again. It will go back to trial a year later in November of 1858. Same evidence. Nothing changed. This time, Josephine was convicted and sentenced to die, just like George was. And this here is where history was made. Now, I don't know if y'all remember, but we have talked about how Mississippi had a court of errors and appeals, and that's basically what we now call the Supreme Court back then. And so its sole purpose was to review cases from lower courts to see if anybody had fucked up on how they had applied the law. So basically, Josephine's case went up for appeal for the verdict and the sentencing 1 year later in October 1859. Now understand, the errors in appeals court, they didn't rule on whether or not Josephine was guilty or innocent. That's not their purpose. Judge Alexander Handy, he overturned her conviction on a technicality. He said the original indictment was flawed. You can't be the main person to do the shenanigans and be the accessory. You can only be one of the others. And you remember, that shit was brought up by George's lawyer when they first was indicted, and the DA and the judge told them to kick rocks, right? Furthermore, knowing that they had fucked up, the state of Mississippi tried to pass a law after the indictment was handed down to say that a slave can be both the main one doing the shenanigans and an accessory at the same damn time. And Judge Handy was like, you can't do that. You can't change the law to get somebody convicted. And they let Josephine go. I know, right? That shit only happens to the white folk. We know Josephine did that shit. And I ain't saying she was right. I'm just saying I understand. And I know she did that shit. But baby, when they let her out of prison this time, Josephine jumped on the first thing smoking and got the hell out of Dodge before Bolivar County could try her ass again. Smart move, Josephine. That's a very smart move, because baby, you just got away with murder. Annalise Keating would be so proud. No other record of Josephine was ever recorded. My hope is that she died later in her sleep of natural causes. And that, Noir Nation, is the story of a slave named Josephine that set it off and walked away with a state-ordered pardon. Woo, child, honey. That was a lot of twists and turns. Y'all didn't see that shit coming, did you? It's so rare that a slave story ends on a happy note, right? You know, instead of 12 years a slave, they should have did Josephine's story. It's not too late, y'all. It's not too late. You know, slavery, I'm finding, was made up of all kinds of experiences for enslaved people. Like, growing up, in my mind, it was all about beat downs and book breaking, cotton picking, and colonizers raping our women and keeping their foot on our people's neck, literally and figuratively. But, you know, as I research these cases that survived the Middle Passage and slavery and all the erasing and not even writing it down and whitewashing of the historical records, you know, the few that were recorded, I am seeing, that it was a lot that was going on, and there was a lot of ghetto ass shit going on too. I mean, yeah, a lot of that was going on, absolutely, a lot of that, right? But there was a lot of ghetto ass shit going on too. Like, them slave owners, they might as well have been the OG real house husbands and housewives of plantations or love and slave ships. I mean, real reality show type shit. I mean, all kind of fuckery going on. All kind of petty bullshit, backstabbing, Uncle Tom, and on both sides of the coin. Like, them cracker ass crackers wasn't shit, full stop. I mean, understand, make no mistake. Slavery was not a good thing. And yes, I know that. And that's not what I'm saying. I guess in my head, I was just thinking that they did all they shit, these white folks, and they didn't suffer no consequences for it. You know what I'm saying? And that's not necessarily true. Our ancestors, they might not have been able to square up on a motherfucker. You know, ask that mouse, you know, who the fuck you think you're talking to? You know what I'm saying? Do you know who I am? I just didn't realize how many of the melanated ancestors did indeed take matters into their own hands and fought back in ways and means that were available to them. You know what I'm saying? And just to tie this up nice and neat, this appeal or whatever, it only applied to Josephine. George was convicted first go round and sentenced to die at his first trial, right? And because there is no mention of him in any of Josephine's court cases, we have to assume that George did indeed get sent to the upper room. Because surely, if Josephine's case was appealable, George's would have been too if he was still around. Ain't too much more to be said about these vintage shenanigans, other than, you know, I've also said, don't fuck with people who fix your food. That shit is worldwide, timeless. That's good advice. I don't care what kind of time you living in. If ever there's a time you need to keep a silver tone, it's to the motherfucker that's fixing your plate. But you know, some people don't subscribe to that point of view. And the light landlords from back in the day, they damn sure didn't care about talking out the side of their necks to the colored peoples. Because you know that's what we was back then. You know what I'm saying? I also think that it is amazing that the law worked in Josephine's favor. But I will say this, though. If Josephine had been a dark-skinned woman, she would have met the same fate as George. Because throughout all of her trial transcripts and things, the DA kept bringing up the fact that there were indeed Negroes that looked like Europeans, reminding the jury constantly that while Josephine might look white, she wasn't. But clearly she passed just enough to make them white men forget that she was indeed a Negro. And again, I ain't mad at your sister. You gotta use what you got to save your life sometime, baby. Let's continue this discussion on social media. Y'all know how to get at me. I am the Melanin Mayhem Podcast everywhere you're looking. And on X, I am Melanin Mayhem PC. The email is always open. You can reach me at melaninmayhempodcast@gmail.com. If you have not joined the private discussion group on Facebook, can you please get to getting, honey? You can find it on Facebook. Just search for Melanin Mayhem Podcast discussion group. Answer the questions, and voila, you are in there. Now, this week's Noir Nation shout out goes to S_Dot. And S_Dot said, "Hey, Nay, I just got my VIP tickets to the show. I'm so excited. I tell everybody about your podcast, and I can't wait to see you in person. Every week you keep me entertained, and even in stories that are sad and tragic, I still feel good after I listen to you. Thank you for helping a Black true crime junkie learn more about Black crimes. Praying that cough goes away. Hope you enjoy Jamaica. See you soon." Oh, hey, S_Dot. Thank you so much for listening, girl. And yes, we is going to Kiki at the live show next week, honey. You are in for a treat, boo. And I am so glad that I am able to provide some infotainment for you. You know, I have to try to prep these stories so that, you know, I call it like castor oil. It ain't the best, but it's good for you. You know what I'm saying? and even though we're talking about heavy subject matter, I got to give it to you in a way that, you know, it goes down easy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm so glad that you are enjoying the way I do what I do. As you can hear in my voice, cough is still here, voice is still wonky, but you know, every day we trying to work it out. I got this hot tea, baby, trying to make it do what it do. Again, thank you so much for listening and taking the time out to leave a review. Now, y'all know what I got to do now. I got to go in here and cut out all this coughing out this damn episode and my daughter barging in on me because, you know, privacy, who cares about that? So let me go on ahead and get in the lab and do what it is that I do. But I need you to know this before I go. I love and appreciate every last one of y'all for tuning in here today and supporting your favorite country girl the way you do. I love ya, boo. So until we talk next week, y'all go on ahead and stay safe and stay vigilant. And just remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. It's one love, Noir Nation, and the raspy voice country girl is out of here. Mwah.
Woo-wee, Nana, you did that.